Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Hersh. Welcome. Standing before the painting, wheat filled with crows, I felt a slow ache move from my chest to my throat. Troubled blue skies, frantic yellow brushstrokes, and crows, lots of crows. Vincent van Gogh painted the scene not long before he shot himself. I was certain that I knew what Vincent felt, because at one time my brain felt exactly the same way, overwhelmed and hopeless. I tried to kill myself 3 times. You might assume because I have a nice husband, sweet kids, a comfortable life, that someone like me could never be depressed. Being logical, that's true, but depression isn't logical. In September of 2001, I sat in a locked psychiatric ward in Zaya-Lipschi at UT Southwestern waiting for electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. My brain felt defective. It was stuck in a fog so thick that I couldn't even play a simple board game with my kids, who were only 5 and 7. I couldn't feel anything, not love, not hate, not joy. Food lacked taste. I just felt hollowed out. My body just felt as though I were a ghost, and it wasn't me. ECT was our last hope. I had to trust my psychiatrist. I lay on the gurney, terrified. I said a Hail Mary. The anesthetic took hold, and my world went dark. ECT passed small pulses of electricity through my brain and gave it a jump start, like paddles applied to a stopped heart. ECT worked, as it does for 80% of the people who try it. The transition for me was so quick, so dramatic, that a thought crystallized. Depression is a disease. My life was exactly the same. I had the same husband, the same kids, the same life, but I felt 180 degrees different. Most people take about 4 to 6 treatments of ECT before they see a change. For me, after treatment number 1, I called my husband. "Come pick me up," I said. "I'm cured." More treatments and therapy ensured that the change stuck, and I recovered. My ignorance about depression almost killed me. Could there be others like that out there? On the chance there were, I wrote a book about my experience called Struck by Living. When published, I did an interview with KERA. As I talked about depression as something treatable and manageable, a young man listened in his car. He was living in Dallas, but he was originally born in Santiago, Chile, as were his parents. He called his father Jorge, who reached into the internet and pulled down my book. Jorge's wife, Patricia, was receiving treatment at Zaya-Lipschi. Jorge knew that his wife would understand the book better in her native Spanish, so he translated it to her, page by page. They read a description. Over here, floor-to-ceiling windows. Over here, the nurse's station. Over here, the grand piano. They looked up from the book in the psychiatric ward. This was the same room that they were in, the same room that I had been in. My story served as a guide for Jorge. Through words on a page, my husband Ken convinced Jorge to be open about Patricia's depression. Jorge released the secret and found support in family and friends. When Patricia improved, Jorge contacted me through my email on my website. We found that our lives were even more closely intertwined. He actually taught Spanish at my son's high school. When we met at a school function, we embraced like old friends. Jorge had dark, flowing hair, a beard, and dark eyes that laugh and peer into souls at the same time. After learning more about his story, I told Jorge that other people had requested Struck by Living in Spanish. "I'll do it," he said. I smiled. The offer seemed generous, but not realistic. He had a full-time job and a family. Jorge proved his determination when he produced the first 5 chapters of the book in Spanish. He wanted another Spanish speaker to check his work. Amelia and Monica, good friends of mine, originally from Mexico City, had read Struck by Living. They agreed in an instant. Emilio called me. Now, Julie, this book, who is it for? Oh, people who are depressed and they're... Yes. I understand that. But is it for Mexicans or is it for Chileans? It's different, you know. We Mexicans don't use all those pretty words like the Chileans. The poor Mexicans are going to be confused. Really? How different? Oh, it's different. Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, everybody's got their own expressions. Kind of like British English and US English. I imagined a British book filled with expressions like trainer, boot, and jumper. Depression is a tough topic. The last thing I wanted was a difficult read. Figuring the target market was more Mexican than Chilean, I asked Emilio and Monica if they could Mexicanize Jorge's beautiful Chilean Spanish. They dubbed themselves the Trashlators. Piscina became alberca. Armario became closet. Closet? Words hop the border between U.S. and Mexico without passports. Mexico introduced me to their Dallas Mexican, Emilio and Monica introduced me to their Dallas Mexican community, the translation opening up a whole new world in our 15-year friendship. Monica transformed before my ears. At a table of Mexican friends, Monica changed from the shy, reserved person I knew into a social magician, linking stories and spinning laughter. At our first face-to-face translation meeting, the conversation turned to an acronym I'd used for Fallen Away Roman Catholic, F-A-R-C, FARC. Jorge thought I was signaling the reader about my inner rebel trapped within my suburban existence, referencing the Colombian Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, or FARCs. When I told him I was just talking about Catholics, he looked really disappointed. My intentional metaphors were lost on them as well. In the first chapter of the book, I was writing about an attempted suicide scene with the car in park and the garage door closed. I wrote, "My map held a permanent destination." In the literal translation, it came back as, "The GPS didn't work." The most difficult part of the translation was the title. For me, Struck by Living has 2 meanings. I can be struck down by life, or I can be struck in awe of life. The difference is really just rooted in perspective. In Spanish, struck only translates as a verb of brute force. Golpe de vida just leaves the reader with a black and blue impression, no matter how you slice it. We finally agreed on decidir vivir. I decided to live. There may be other things lost in translation, but through my work on decidir vivir, I've learned that nothing is translated exactly. We can only approximate and find the reflection of ourselves in each other. Each time I tell my story and someone else sees his or her reflection, a bond forms. Depression becomes more bearable for both of us. With each telling, I heal too. I stare my depression in the face. I frame it. I define it so I can manage it. My last suicide attempt was 14 years ago. I still understand what Vincent felt, but depression is no longer those frantic yellow brushstrokes or that foreboding blue sky. Those colors, still blue and yellow, have transformed for me into the colors of possibility. For me, life continued because décidé vivre. I decided to live.